I grew up with different friends of all races, cultures, beliefs, you name it, and pretty much I had an awesome childhood because of this wide variety of friends. But as the years went by, as I went into high school, into college, and into the working world, I started to hear one thing that was being preached around me. And that thing was that we, as a society, needed to work towards being a more unified, united, peaceful, and harmonious country. And I did not actually get that. Harmony ruled my playgrounds, but apparently harmony did not rule my country. And I thought to myself, what was actually going on? Where was this difference between my everyday life and this life that I apparently had as a certain race in my own country? Just to make sure I wasn't the only one talking about this, I had to find people who actually knew what they were talking about.
Where are you guys from? Like, where do you grow up?
KL.
KL.
I'm a PJ boy. PJ boy.
Did you guys grow up around mostly friends from your own culture or race?
Because I went to government school growing up, and then I think secondary school was private school, but it was always a mix of. There was no one race that was even dominant in those schools.
Right.
It was a very mixed.
Yeah, I was friends with the nerds, with the punks,
Yeah.
with the music guys, with the theater guys. But you noticed it, of course. When you were talking with your friends, if you want to stay over at your friend's place and everything, there's always these sort of like hushed discussions about among the parents. Can you, can't you do this?
You ask the mom whether they let you.
That's right. You knew that from a friend to friend kind of level, there was a connection, there was a value that we all were sort of subscribing to, but there were these pressures within the environment that you couldn't neglect or avoid.
It was actually well past my teens when suddenly those racial dynamics reared their heads, but only because of what was happening in the country as a whole.
Right.
So personally, yes, I probably have experienced the kind of racism, but it was never among my circle of friends.
So if there was racism to be experienced around Umar growing up, what was making the difference among his circle of friends? I guess there was only one way to find out.
So kita kenal almost
2 years.
3 years. Oh, sorry. We're friends.
We knew each other at 8 years old, so that's been 18 years.
9 to 10 lah. I'll say 9 to 10, close 9 to 10.
Yeah, close to 9 to 10 years.
You're smart. You got the blessing of my father, and that's how we actually kickstart things.
You want to tell them why you didn't like me that time or not? I mean,
because of,
my appearance, how
yeah,
I wear,
because seluar besar, seluar besar.
Those regular fit one lah.
Then baju oversized. We get along really well. We like the same stuff.
So I have like more Chinese friends than Indian friends.
I think when it comes to racist kind of comments, it's always more joking for my sense.
We just bash each other's face all the time.
Some people can actually look at our friendship and they think like, oh, don't you get offended when she says XXX or whatever?
She can say it because like I know the intention behind it, and like I won't get hurt by it.
You can say whatever you want. I can say, hey, I'm gonna take out my parang, kill you and all that. But of course, I'm not gonna do it lah for no reason lah, right? But
For no reason, guys. Better hati-hati. Jangan kau cakap lain.
I feel like, you know, that's it. We make fun of like, not just our races, but we love making fun of white people too.
I feel like because we respect each other whatever we do, I respect what he does, so I take his word. So and same goes to him as well.
How Chinese people talk about Malay people will forever remain within the circle of Chinese people. How Indian people refer to Chinese people, we talk among our own kind, but you're forever left out of that conversation because we can't let you in. That's our secret.
When you have that Malaysia moment with your buddies and friends,
you get let in.
While we're at this really safe space, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
And we don't do that often enough.
I went to a Tamil school.
Right.
I went to a full-on Tamil school, surrounded by Indian teachers only and Indian students only. I hated Tamil school. When I got out of Tamil school, I was so culture shocked. We were taught to be scared of the outside world. Just do your own things. Don't kena kacau, because when you go out, there's legit. I had an Indian Muslim teacher who told me that, oh, y'all don't know what it's like to be in the outside world. They'll say, oh, keling this, keling that. So they scare you into like this coop and make you believe that, oh, Indians are always going to be stepped on.
I was taught to be afraid of, Chinese people and Indian people, but not very overtly because it never really came up.
Right.
These discussions never really came up because the amount of Chinese and Indian people in our classes were small, less than 10.
Right.
I was friends with them because I didn't have people to speak English to except for my Chinese and Indian friends. I understood that I could be friends with them, but I also sort of had this underlying belief that I can't really be rapat with them or else. I have to be friends with Malay Muslim kids so that I can be a good Malay Muslim boy. That is sort of like the understanding. Nobody ever told me this, like outright, but it was sort of my understanding and what the world around me needed me to understand also.
Where or why do you think, as a kid, you feel these things?
100% from, I feel, parents. I think the biggest role though, teachers. I spent more time with teachers than I did with parents. Towards the end of my high school period, I did walk away with friends who were Chinese, who were Malays and who were Indian, but I understood that not all Malays are gonna be like, oh, don't hang with him because he's kafir. Not all Chinese students are gonna be like, oh, we just want to stick with our own. Not all Indians are gonna be like, oh, want to steal money from you.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. When I walked away with my friends, I understood the difference between the Malays that felt like they needed to just be with the Malays. But I also understood in the same race that there were friends, true friends of mine that felt, I don't give a shit what color you are. I just like hanging out with you. I like spending my time with you. I think my friends brought me out of that mentality that was instilled by others who felt like they needed to be their own kind, and also by teachers who just felt like, oh, you need to be, cautious about like who you hang with.
And just to make sure this wasn't just us as woke millennials who felt this way, we decided to find another person who really knew what they were talking about.
A lot of people didn't have my friends and my backgrounds, our childhoods. You would be hearing from people saying, I don't really eat or hang out with Chinese kids, because very susah. Then like you would meet your younger cousins or friends who go to local universities and say, oh, we don't have dormies who are like Chinese or Indians. Why? Because susah nak semayang. And I said, well, you just semayang je lah. They can just sleep on a bunk bed. Yeah. And it became more and more divided. And I just said, God, this is so fascinating. Why are we doing what we are doing? I don't like to use the word tolerance, yeah. I don't want to use the word acceptance because it sounds so passive-aggressive, like, what to do lah, I think we should just live with each other and look at our similarities and understand that, okay, you can't eat meat. Okay, you don't believe in a God. Having said that, now that you realize, okay, we're different. How do we help each other? How do we empower each other? Why can't we have conversations like this? We keep harping on this thing again and again. I, as a Malaysian, I'm like, penat tau. Honestly, sometimes I wonder whether we ourselves put out the barriers. You can sit down and talk, I wish people would have this kind of interactions.
Orang-orang macam tu sebenarnya diorang tak actually, like betul-betul blend with these people. Diorang tak macam betul-betul kawan. They just like assume, oh, they see the things online and say, oh, okay, betul. Tengok ni, this Chinese guy, blah blah blah. Tengok this Malay and this Indian, blah blah blah.
If we spend a little less time focusing on like the things that like make us like obviously different, like skin color, race, like what I eat, my food, your food, that kind of thing, and then you focus a little bit more on what makes us similar is basically the fact that we're all humans. Stop harping on the differences lah. Sebenarnya tak banyak pun. Janganlah kicu sangat pasal tu.
You guys grew up with the environment that enabled you guys to be more racist than you could think, right? Why aren't you racist today?
I understood the simple fact that beyond race, you need to love. You need to love people as humans. I don't want to succumb to, or just because I got racially abused and I felt this. If I dish it out more, it just makes the whole problem bigger.
I still feel like there's residual racism in me that, I'm trying to, excrete out of my body after being raised for 20 years a certain way. I think what's important is that I notice what I do and I notice what I say and I notice how I treat other people and to be critical of myself. I started to understand that what race we're born into was never a choice. Sometimes what religion we're born into was never a choice. These are the circumstances that I was born into, and everybody has these circumstances. Nobody asked to be born, and nobody asked to be born the way they were born. When I started to understand that, I started to understand, oh, it's stupid to be racist sebenarnya because macam you're ridiculing someone for something they had no say over. They had zero choice in the matter and you're making them feel bad about it. Why is that acceptable? Once I started understanding that, I started taking steps to, you know, shed all this racism from me, and I'm still working towards that.
The reason why I'm making this video is not just because it's something that I've always wanted to talk about for a really long time, it's also the fact that my country has just entered a new stage of life. But a new country can't come without a new people having new conversations along with it. Racism doesn't just come from other races. It doesn't just come from other people even. Racism is a duality that lives in all of us that wants to believe that we're not racist, but at the same time we kinda are. Another point would be that education is key. Kids pick up more watching teachers than what teachers talk about in books. We won't get past this first hurdle if we create another generation preset with these prejudices, with these perspectives and values. The reformation of education is not just about looking at what is being taught, it's about looking at the people who are teaching. And last but not least, we need to talk. Because if there ever was a loophole in racism and racial prejudice, even if you believe that there is propaganda that politicians are trying to force onto a country, there is this loophole called friendship. And among friends, there is that tolerance and understanding that you can joke about things, you can ask certain things. Racism can either be something that runs as deep as a generational heritage, or it can be as shallow as a small step away from not asking the question, why is it this way? Why do you do things the way you do? And that is it. Racism is merely just a conversation we've not had yet. And anywhere on this earth you are, I encourage you to just talk. Because honestly, that's all it takes. Please leave a comment. Tell us what worked for you. Tell us what didn't work for you. All I really want the comment section to be is a pool of experience and good words that everyone can at least share and probably benefit from. See you guys in the next video. Until then,